Welcome in, everyone, as our draft coverage begins here. Day 2 from Raiders HQ. Lincoln Kennedy, Eric Allen, I'm JT, and we got a monster show lined up for you as we bring you up to the Raiders' Day 2 pick coming up here in a couple of hours. And, guys, we got a lot to cover. There's still some really good players on the board, really good players. The Raiders want to strike early today. But, EA, I want to begin with you. You sat down with Tyree Wilson. You had a one-on-one with him, the newest member of the Silver and Black. Tell us about him.
Outstanding young man, first of all, very humble, kind of understands where he is and how he got there. Wasn't easy. A lot of these guys, they just think it's fate that, hey, I'm going to be on, the draft and walk out and hug the – no, not with him. Changed schools. High school was recruited highly, but wasn't the greatest guy coming out of Texas, right? Understands that. Left Texas A&M, went to Texas Tech. Had to kind of find his way onto the football field. Had to deal with the injuries. So a lot of things here are positive for the Raiders, knowing that you have a guy who is still hungry. And the one thing I got out of it, he really is ready to get on the football field with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones.
Lincoln, you were working the draft party in front of a big crowd. What did you think when you heard the pick? Because there was a lot of rumors before that, a lot of wild trades we're going to get to coming up here. When he fell to the Raiders, what did you think initially?
I like the pick. Personally, he has the same frame as Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. I think that plays in. And more importantly, when we talk about the need or addressing the need, the Raiders definitely need to address the defense. More importantly, they need to get more sacks. They got to get more pressure on the quarterbacks. You've got some prolific quarterbacks, especially in this division. So you got to find a way to get more pressure. I think that really helps with this pick.
Let me tell you, I was with Max Crosby when the pick came and Chandler Jones. And I was there, and it was going to be unique because we didn't know what was going to happen. And Max, when he found out a little bit earlier, they were so excited and happy. And to see the reaction from Chandler Jones to want to mentoring him and Max knowing he's going to get some help here and what's going to happen. That was one of the coolest things I've seen in my career with this organization. Yeah. They're at a draft party in front of a lot of people, and cameras are looking for their reaction because they play that position.
Right.
And those guys were genuinely, EA, excited the way football players get excited when they get new teammates.
And JT, and you know this, and Link, definitely you know this, but when you add a player in your room, so you're sitting in your meeting rooms and your defensive line, the offensive line, and you're getting a guy, you're excited about that because you're able to, if I'm a veteran, I want that. I want Charles Woodson in my room so I can pass along all those things that I've learned. So hopefully when Charles is, in his 13th, 14th year, he has a story for another young guy, and it includes my name into it. So this is a perfect place for a guy like that. He understood, what it meant to be a Raider, and the Raiders always have great edge rushers. And I told him, I said, listen, the cornerback's going to be all on you. You may get a couple gifts from the corners because we love a guy who can get up to the quarterback and make that ball come out a little bit.
Lincoln, I want you to dive in as the radio analyst, what this means to the fans as a rotational player, because I'm saying you need a guy who stays on the field every play and is a dominant player at number 7 overall. We talked before the show about what he can do on the inside, dropping back into coverage, coming off the edge, and being a rotational star in this league.
What's important to understand with this defense, it's not, Max Crosby is listed as an outside linebacker, not a defensive end. There's a difference there. Defensive ends don't drop into the flat. Defensive ends don't drop into space. Outside linebackers do. And part of this defense, you've got to be able to have that ability. Chandler Jones did it. Mainly in New England, but he also did it at Arizona before he came here. So he has that ability. Max Crosby did it a couple times last year. Yes, you want these guys rushing quarterback, but you got to be versatile. The fact that he can also go inside, can you imagine possibly having him, Max Crosby, and Chandler Jones on the field at the same time to generate a rush, part of a NASCAR package? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's things that you can be there. But what most impressed me about this young man is his wingspan. He's got long arms. And why that's important, because they can do a number of moves against the offensive tackles if they learn how to do it. Now, the only thing I would suggest to him when I see him, he's got to develop a second move. I have not, from the film I've seen, he does not have a complementary move. So when somebody stops that initial bull rush or that one-arm push, he's got to be able to go to something else. And I don't know if he has it yet because I haven't seen it, but that would be the one thing I suggest to him. Rotation, as you're talking about, JT and EA, is important. You don't see an every down player these days. That's why you have the term edge rusher, but listed next to him. You don't see defensive tackle, defensive end as much as you used to. And I go back to the Philadelphia Eagles. Over the last couple of years of success, especially when they won the Super Bowl against New England, they had a rotation with their defensive line.
Yes.
They were able to get guys in and off and in and out, during the game. And I think that's important to try to keep guys fresh, especially in the fourth quarter.
All right, so I'm going to ask you both a perfect scenario. Week 1, Allegiant Stadium, home opener, EA. They trot out the defense, and there's a lot of work to do today. So I think they're going to add 3 or 4 defenders over the weekend and hopefully 2 more starters. But in an ideal package for you with Chandler, Max, Tyree, how do you see them lining up and getting to the quarterback? Because Dave Ziegler will have the sound coming up here once these guys getting to the great quarterbacks in the AFC West.
Yeah, and our football team is based on situation. We're situational football. So depending on who we're playing, so if we face a football team that throws the ball on first down 70% of the time, I expect all 3 of these guys to be on the football field at some capacity. And then you're able to drop the young guy into coverage like Link was talking to. And me, I don't want to see Max dropping. And we saw him dropping a couple of times last year. I don't want to see Max dropping. So now you have a younger guy who can drop into coverage, so he can line up over the end or over the tackle and then drop into that little hole, the hook curl hole. And he understands that. Younger players are more athletic at this point. They've been in 7-on-7s. They've been all over. They've come from tight end or whatever. So he's probably more capable in understanding where to drop and why to drop under there. You just can't have a guy and then drop him and say, hey, you're in the National Football League. We're going to have you drop underneath Kelsey. He doesn't have any idea what he's supposed to be doing. But these younger guys who have played different positions, they understand a passing concept. So, again, I think this is a great player, versatile enough to be on our football team. If we're facing a football team that throws early on first down or, of course, third down, he needs to be on the football team.
Lincoln, I find this fascinating. Max went in the 4th round. Now he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, and we got him in the 4th round. This kid's going number 7 overall. Talk me through expectations. There weren't a lot of big expectations for Max right out of the gate, and he's exceeded that, and he wants to go to another level. He wants a gold jacket someday, and he's on pace to do it. So let's talk about the mentoring part of this and how that room's going to look and how our established defensive ends, including Chandler, are going to bring him into this organization, make him feel comfortable, and get the most out of him.
You come into yesterday, JT, and the reason why you're picking in the top 10 because your season before didn't go as accordingly, right? That's the reason why you're doing it. And most teams, when they pick in the top 10, are looking for high-impact players at some degree. This type of a pick for the Raiders can have 2 effects. It can spark a light under Chandler Jones to get him back to that pace where he was probably pending a Hall of Fame career, get him back to that situation, along with Max Crosby, which creates a beautiful combination on opposing their defense against opposing offenses. And it can also spark the fact of future. You've got guys that are chipping in. Look at the season that Nate Hobbs had when he was first drafted. You see high expectations, comes in, he plays because he felt disrespected, that he felt the way he did in the draft. So this is an instance where you want the best from a young man, you want the best to come out of the young man, but more importantly, it could spark other people around. It could drive a fire. You, much like you said, still addressing the fact the needs on defense for the rest of the weekend, you're going to have some impact players that come in and play immediately.
Well, I'm going to push back on one thing. Does it matter if you don't get a defensive tackle? There are a few here on the roster. They passed on Jalen Carter. We handled that yesterday.
Right.
And that was a big pick for Philadelphia, okay? Really big.
Huge.
But we didn't get a defensive tackle yesterday, and I thought that was priority number 1 for need. But they found the best player available, and that was a great pick. I don't think we all agree the Raiders got. Now, how important is that need at defensive tackle compared to corner or linebacker now that you got a guy who can play on the edge and do everything you're saying he can do?
To me, it's not as big of a need. I still think you need to address corner, safety, possibly a linebacker, and then you can address defensive tackle. I think you can address defensive tackle in later rounds just for a rotational standpoint. But the fact is that we've seen more pressure generated from the outside guys than we have in the inside guys most recently. And the thing is that the way offenses are framed these days is that everybody wants to push the quarterback off the point where when they drop back and then they're pushing the pocket forward. You want to have that interior presence. I think that's as important. But when you talk about difference makers, I think it comes out the end position. It comes from the outside because most of the times you see a lot of quarterbacks are just not as aware of that as they are on the inside.
Yeah.
Well, it all comes down to, and all these critical areas are important, but which player at the cornerback position or the edge or the middle or the defensive tackle, which of these guys are going to be able to come in and contribute faster? So if I have a corner right now who I think, man, he has slipped out of the first round and he's someone who can help this football team win, or a defensive tackle who's in a slot, maybe the third round, and he's not going to be the kind of pivotal player that we think is going to contribute, I'm going to go with the corner. So now we're in a good situation to find the best player to fit our scheme and, more importantly, our attitude. And I hate saying this culture word, but they have to fit the culture of this new regime.
All right, let's get to Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly. They spoke to the media earlier today about their first overall pick.
Definitely we're excited that he was there. Wasn't, going into it, weren't sure whether he was going to be there or not. We had our group of players that we liked in that area. But I think the magic number for us as we went in were how many quarterbacks were going to be taken and, who that was going to push down the board. And so, very excited when we saw that he was still there, and excited to have him.
Our area scouts put in a ton of work, gathering information, about him prior to him coming in. And so you got, Calvin Branch and Kyle Caballera and Matt Hand, Curtis Knox, and Ryan Gravel. Like those guys spend a ton of time finding out and detailing the player before they even come in for the 30 visit.
Just his ability to disrupt. I think, like we've talked about it before, like we want to be able to eventually develop over time here a front that's able to come in waves, and you're able to keep guys fresh, and you'll be able to. I think that's important in this day and age too, because especially we have quarterbacks that run around. Like Herbert can move around, Russell Wilson moves around, Pat is Pat. He can move around in his own way, and so. Being able to have some guys that can pressure the quarterback, disrupt the pocket, and have more guys that can do that in phases, if you will, I think is valuable.
The other thing I would add is we thought that he was extremely versatile.
Yeah.
So this is a guy who played all across the front. So you can align up with Max and Chan, and this guy can still find a role to help us rush the quarterback. He's even seen dropping in some clips, so we were excited about that as well. You get a guy, that size, that length, who is able to, set the edge, in the run game, but also he shows some versatility to be able to drop with awareness. Anytime you have that type of versatility with a player, it just adds to what you can do with different defensive packages. And so adding that to our roster right now really, really excites us, our coaches, and eventually our fans. When they come back and they tell me, first of all, they tell me, okay, we got this guy with extremely long arms with an amazing body, who practices extremely hard day in and day out. Like we're automatically excited when we hear that, and then you meet him in person and then you watch the tape. Like you just every interaction that we had in him made us like him, even more. And the thought of him getting a chance to really come in and learn from Max Crosby, to learn from Chandler Jones. You're talking about a relatively young guy who still has some development to go, and to get it from those two guys is exciting for all of us.
Well, that's tremendous sound and video.
Yes.
I mean, they summed it all up. And Lincoln, I'll start with you. Every box it checked. And I'm fascinated on why they didn't take Carter. I get it, what the need was, but I believe this player, if he got to 7, was a lock for them. I mean, maybe they trade up to 3 to get him, or move around to do it. We'll talk to Dave about that down the road. But that player was not getting past the Raiders at 7.
Well, you talk about the specifics. 6'6", 280 pounds means he can stand up against the offensive tackles in this league and develop and defend himself. And the long arm span, which aids in a pass rusher, and the fact that he can get his hands on a tackle before they shoot their hands on him means that he can dictate a lot of the pass rush moves that he's going to do against him. So there are a lot of specifics. I mean, a lot of technical things that you can say. And of course, they talk about how he practices, how he's shown that effort and enthusiasm. You put him in a position around a Chandler Jones, around a Max Crosby, who are always going. That motor is always high in those guys. That'll be contagious, you know what I'm saying? So I think that really adds on to him, and Eric can attest to this. When you have you see that type of behavior out of a young man who's coming into the situation, it pumps you up.
Yeah, look at the wingspan there.
Yeah.
What do you see here on the graphic for those listening on radio?
Right.
Chandler Jones, 6'5", 7'1" wingspan, but Tyree Wilson, 6'6", 7.5", and Max is 6'5", 6'9" wingspan. This guy's
Amazing.
going to knock down some footballs at the line of scrimmage.
Exactly. It's so important when we talk about a push in the middle. And we just heard the GM talk about his versatility. and we're going to continue to hear that about this football team, is they love versatile players, whether it's offensive line last year, defensive players this year, defensive backs. You have to be versatile and smart to play with this football team. The other thing that he talked about was the effort in practice. Heard a lot about that last year during the end of the season about, hey, we want to get these guys to have great effort in practice so we'll know they're going to play hard in the game. There's not this coast during the practice and then get in the game and turn it on. Show me in practice, and then I'll put you on the football field. That's important. One more thing is he's talked about the awareness. We're talking about that dropping as a defensive player. Okay, you have to be aware of what's going on around you. You just can't drop into a hole. I mean, it's not high school. We just drop. Man, you drop with the awareness of who's around you. Those are the kind of things that can really stretch and make a defense even better.
Lincoln, good segue to the offensive line. I think the Raiders are clearly going to get an offensive line player in the next 2 days. What does this do for the offensive lineman in practice going up against this practice beast? And we know what Max does. Every time we see a video of Max in practice, he's leading them in. He's the last one off the field. How does this prepare the offensive line?
Well, it makes you better.
Yeah.
It makes you better. It gives you an understanding of how to defend against a tall player. I mean, you don't see a Max Crosby, you don't see a Chandler Jones every time you play. However, there are notoriously good defensive ends or outside linebackers in this league, and especially in this division. So it teaches you how to play, against those longer players. The Bosas, come to example, are very long. They're very long players, and they play with really great leverage. And the film that I've seen on Tyree, especially coming out of college in Texas Tech, was a lot of times he out-leveraged the offensive lineman that he's playing against, using those long arms. So, as I said earlier, I think he just needs to develop a second move, but I think he's on the track. There's a reason why he was drafted number 7 overall.
EA, do you think he's even going to grow into this body more? He looks like a beast already.
Yes.
And Max, when he came in, if you look at him when he came in till now, the amount of muscle mass that Max put on, because he's eating like a pro, he's in a pro weight room. What's going to happen to this guy after he's around here in this weight room with this facility, the best facility in all of football?
Best facility, and AJ down in the weight room is going to get him right. Got everything you need down there nutrition-wise. We got an amazing training table. This facility, you can just sleep in this thing. I mean, he is going to put on probably 15, 20 pounds in the next 4 or 5 years. He is going to be an amazing football player. And if he continues to develop, he's being the kind of guy where you can move left, right, him and Max. And, Chandler in his last couple years are going to really help this young man grow.
So last one for both of you here in about a minute or so to go. Was this the best player available, the best need, or a combination, Lincoln, when you look at it? How do you see this? Why did they take him?
I see it as a combination. You had to address the need. Look, we know specifically it needed defense, but this is a team that was, I think, 30th last year in sacks. Got to get better. You got to get better. So I think it was both a need and the fact that he was available there, because I think a lot of teams had him high on their board as well.
Well, we talked to Dave earlier this week, and one of the questions I asked him was, hey, talent or scheme and skill and all that stuff's fit? He's like, talent. He's like, talent weighs over everything. If the guy is talented and he has a motor, we can get him to blend in, right? So I think this was one of the better players on the board when he was there, and then he fit what we need. We need some defensive players.
You're getting a commission on the white coat?
You like that, huh?
Let's get a full screen of this.
Look at that.
I know that this just came to the Raider image recently.
Hey,
everybody's talking about this coat.
Designed by Mr. Davis himself.
Absolutely. So you're not wearing this in November, December. You're wearing it headed in.
Right
You know
here.
it's going to get hot in the summer. You're not going to be able to wear it.
It's
every
okay.
day.
It's warm today. That's what I said. You
Look at that.
Middle of the
I'm
desert.
looking
We're in
fly right now, like Tyree was.
I know your sons. Your sons are going to be looking for it. They're going to be grabbing
This
it.
is the
every
last
day.
time I'm wearing this, probably.
Yeah, they're going to have it. They're going to have it pretty quick. All right, when we come back on the other side, we're going to get into the rest of the first round, and there were some big-time surprises, and we'll preview what's ahead in day 2.
You're listening to Upon Further Review. I'm your host, Eddie Pascal.
Good morning, Raider Nation.
Welcome to Raiders Roundtable. JT along with Q Myers.
He dissects the play quickly and makes the move to the football.
Tyree, This is Coach McDaniels. How are you? I'm doing great, buddy. Are you there with your family? That's great. Well, we're going to turn the pick in here, and you're going to be a Raider. So we just wanted to congratulate you. You're really going to help our football team. We're looking forward to integrating you here with our group, and couldn't be more excited to make you a Raider here, bud.
Welcome to Raider Nation, big boy. We're excited, man. You know, smart, tough, dependable, guys that love football. And we're going to get you better and, keep growing you. And it's going to be a special thing for you. We're really excited for you and your family. Enjoy this moment with everybody. You'll see it coming across the screen. We'll see you here sooner than later.
Go to your mama first.
The Las Vegas Raiders and Allegiant Stadium have announced plans to elevate and expand its premium suite offerings, introducing 100-level club suites for the 2023 season. Completion for the expansion project is expected for early fall ahead of the start of the Raiders' regular season, as well as marquee events and concerts, including Beyonce, Ed Sheeran, and Pink. For more details, visit Raiders.com/club suites or call 702-463-5132.
I really didn't know what the Raiders were going to do with me. We lost 2 games in the whole 4 years I was at Morgan. Won the National Small College Championship. Next thing I knew, draft was coming. You're nervous as hell. You're a kid, and the draft's coming. You think you got a chance. So you go do something to occupy yourself. I spent the day watching a high school basketball game. I came back and everybody was looking for me. I had notes on my car. Go talk to the coach right away. I went and talked to the coach and they said, well, you've been drafted. And they said, the Raiders. And I said, well, when? They said, #1. I'm like, holy
A star was forged, a rugged, determined rookie from Morgan State, a tight end named Raymond Chester.
I am proud to have worn the shield and to continue to wear the shield. I'm proud to be in the Raider family.
Every audition is super special, and that's the first moment that you and your team bond and click.
Being with my sisters and dancing is just unlike any other feeling I've ever experienced.
Welcome back to our Day 2 draft coverage. We're here at Raiders HQ. Lincoln Kennedy, Eric Allen. I'm JT. We got a big show lined up for you as we get you ready for the Raiders' next pick as we start off right here. And I thought the draft was amazing because we knew going in there was going to be a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know what was going to happen because Bryce Young seemed to be a lock, but I thought, and we covered it yesterday, Eric, we thought C.J. Stroud could maybe drop down to the Raiders, the agent issue and all that. Houston goes and takes him at number 2, and then Houston trades from 12 to 3. That has never happened before. It will never happen again. Never will a team that has the 2nd overall pick trade outside the top 10 for the 3rd. That is beyond rare. So I got to give Houston some credit here. I mean, they tried to change their entire franchise overnight.
Yeah, and it's really when you get an opportunity to get a quarterback who's going to lead your offense and then a defensive player who's going to lead your defense in the same draft and basically one after another, it's just amazing how aggressive they were, and you got to give them a lot of credit. But I look at Houston and C.J. Stroud, after all the smoke and mirrors and, people talking about he's not the kind of player that can go with number 2. I just feel so happy for that guy.
Yeah, he went under a lot of stress the
last
you could 24
tell.
hours. The last 24 hours he went through the ring.
It was really difficult for that young man, so I'm happy to see that he's a good player too.
Lincoln, I find it fascinating that everybody's wondering, I thought maybe the Raiders trade back in to the 1st round. Well, they did something that was so bizarre that we've never seen before. I wonder what every other war room thought that said, hey, we don't have a great early pick. Let's trade into the first round. And then you see Houston trade to number 3 from number 12. This isn't like a team going from 25 to 13. That was a bold move.
We've noticed a lot of GMs over the last couple of years who are building up draft picks as commodities, a part of a sort of currency around the NFL. And what I applaud the Texans on is the fact that they had a number of draft choices they got from Cleveland, along with their own, over the Deshaun Watson trade, right? And so they had a plethora. Their aggressiveness shows me one thing. They addressed their strongest need was at quarterback. But their aggressiveness of getting Will Anderson says that they've got now an edge rusher to apply pressure on the quarterback. There was so much criticism before this current regime with Houston about the way the front office handled things with their players and how they got rid of a number of players, J.J. Watt, Hopkins, and just to name a few. But, for them to try to make an impact and to bounce back in was showing a strong effort. Really tip my hat to them. The aggressive moves have paid off because they got 2 quality day one starters.
Quality players who,
day one starters.
What? I'm not sure if Will Anderson Jr., if his ceiling is as high as our guys, but he's played some great football.
Yeah.
He's very versatile. He's lined up all over the football field, and there's no doubt that he's going to be an outstanding football player.
Most mock drafts had Will Levis and Anthony Richardson right next to each other.
Right.
One goes first, the other goes right behind him. Richardson goes 4. Levis is still on the board. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Anthony Richardson, that is a prospect with a massive high ceiling. He's the physical type of player that Mahomes and Lamar Jackson can be. I think that's a smart move for Indy, and they don't have to play him early.
Yeah, for sure. And you have to have great confidence in your coaching staff, in your training room to be able to develop this young man and turn him into the player that he can be if he's going to reach his potential. Now, we know he has all of the off-script tools to be successful in the National Football League. If everyone's covered and he brings that ball down, good luck linebackers and corners and safeties trying to tackle this young man because he is strong, athletic, fast. He has all those tools that when the play breaks down, he's going to be very comfortable. But situations where teams are going to be smart, keep him inside the pocket, make sure when we rush our edges, we're not going to lose contain. We're going to keep him in the pocket, force him to try and throw from the pocket. That's going to be something he's going to have to deal with, and hopefully for his sake, he can succeed.
To me, it's even though he hasn't played a lot of football, hasn't had a lot of starts, the fact is he had a tremendous outing at the Combine. That's what set him apart because teams came out there raving about him.
Best combine ever made.
Absolutely. You
ever
know what I mean?
for that position.
And you see a lot of guys that are doing that are testing well, but he went and he showed off in his combine and his pro day, and that's the reason why the Colts got him.
Lincoln, you got a lot of sources up there in Seattle and especially Arizona, who I'll get to next. Devin Witherspoon, I thought was going to be a Raider.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to drop. Why would Seattle pass on Jalen Carter? A need there. They go get a corner. Legion of Boom of the past, and get that player there. Most mocks did not have Seattle doing that. They had Carter. Right after that pick, you knew that Carter was dropping.
Yeah, well, they needed a corner as well. Seattle needed a corner. And, of course, Witherspoon being there, they didn't think he was going to be there. They thought there were probably going to be some teams that were going to trade up and try to get him. But because he was there and he was ranked the number 1 corner prospect, they definitely needed him. They wanted an impact player for day one.
Yeah, I was surprised.
I was surprised,
because
too.
they have a guy right down the road who plays their style of defense. And Long, from Oregon, obviously. And I thought that they would, if they went corner, they would go with someone like that.
It was a toss-up between Gonzalez and Witherspoon. And I think if Witherspoon was off the board, they were going to go with Gonzalez.
Okay.
Now we get to Paris Johnson Jr. There, I saw a couple of mocks having the Raiders waiting for him, and it makes me feel good about this player because if he would have went to the Raiders at 7, I feel good about it now knowing that he went 6, and a lot of teams thought this highly of him. Tell me about him, his size. He's enormous here, but I didn't expect him to go number 6, and what message does it send to Kyler Murray as they're finally trying to get him some help here? Not DeAndre Hopkins, not a J.J. Watt type of player of the past, that they want their quarterback now to stabilize coming off this injury because he is their franchise quarterback. They're not getting out of that deal.
Yeah, I was told that Kyler Murray asked for this one.
Okay.
I was told he asked for an offensive lineman help, and they wanted to address it early rather than later. They wanted to get a high-impact one. And this young man out of Ohio State is aggressive. He's what I call a snot blower, where he's just going to run over you and not think twice.
Look at Link. Link's getting excited right here with this guy.
Anytime you got a road grader like that, I love it. But he's also got good feet. He's good in pass pro, and I think it'll really help this Arizona team.
So were you surprised that he went ahead of Peter Skoronski, who went 11? The Northwestern tackle went to the Titans at 11. I thought he was going to be the first tackle to go. What do you think the difference was there?
The difference to me is more of an attitude rather than in finesse. Skoronski's a finesse player, good player out of Northwestern, smart player, but he's not as aggressive as Paris is. And so I think that was the difference for me when watching the two. If you're going to, it depends on what you want. You want an attitude, you want a trendsetter, you want somebody, like I said, who's a snot blower, who's going to get into the huddle and just be frothing out of the mouth because he wants to run people over. That's Paris Johnson.
All right, EA, this is a big one. One of your former teams, the Eagles, they end up getting maybe the best defensive player in Jalen Carter, and Howie Roseman can do no wrong now. So does it take a GM like that? Did a lot of other GMs kind of say, I don't have the moxie. I haven't been a GM for 10 years, and I've just been to a Super Bowl. Walk me through the Eagles there that handled that perfectly. That kid's got to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
He's got to be the right player, and we hope he is. But what a powerful move for the NFC champs.
Right. And the Eagles organization is a lot like the Raiders organization, where they have ex-players and alumni who are in the building a lot. And they're going to speak with this young man. And he's not going to be the superstar on defense, not even in his room, right? There's so many. Fletcher Cox is there, right? So he has opportunities to learn from some of the best in the business right now. That team is just going to roll lineman after lineman, pressure after pressure on you. And it just seems like they've done a really good job. And you're right about the GM. You won a Super Bowl. You've been back to a Super Bowl. It gives you a little freedom to be able to choose, hey, you know what? Let's continue to make one of our strengths even stronger. So defensive line has been a strength of this football team the last couple of years, and it's going to continue to be so far.
Just a little added caveat to what we're talking about, and I know we'll talk about it more. The fact that they also went and got Nolan Smith, the outside linebacker from Georgia, is his teammate.
I know.
Knows him well, and you're hoping that they have a good relationship together because they can help mentor one another.
Yeah.
But I know specifically when it comes to Jalen Carter, there were a number of teams that wanted to stay away because of the off-field troubles. Just don't know what it's going to be like. And being in this situation in Philadelphia around guys like Fletcher Cox, and it can humble you first and foremost, and more importantly, it shows that someone's going to give them a chance because the Eagles jumped up there to get them.
Who's the happiest guy yesterday? Marcus Allen's at the draft party. And I go, Marcus, what do you think about the running backs? John Robinson goes to Texas, and then Gibbs from Alabama goes number 12, and Marcus just lit up.
Yeah.
He's so tight with Earl Campbell over the years, being Hall of Famers. And I asked him about Robinson at Texas, and he looked at it, and they were showing the highlights, and you could just see Marcus's shoulders stand up and says, he can do it all. That's a modern-day running back who can do it all. Were you both surprised he went that early? That was about where he was supposed to go. I thought he'd drop out of the top 10.
You know what? I was, because just the emphasis on other positions and kind of how our league has adopted to make that running back position non-viable until you get a superstar like that. But going into the draft, I thought he was one of the players who were the top 5 guys in the draft. You're talking about just pure turn on the film and see him go. He has everything. He can catch the football. You can line him up in the slot. He does it all. He's carried the Texas Longhorns on his back. And I think he's going to be a terrific football player.
The fact that he went to Atlanta was because Atlanta statistically running the football had success last year. So even though it didn't translate in wins, the fact that he went to Atlanta was good for them, good for the Falcons. More importantly, he's the type of player that reminds me of a LaDainian Tomlinson.
Absolutely, great.
Just has that sort of subtle speed, but that breakaway and that ability. And much like EA was talking about, the fact that he can catch out of the backfield, he has that versatility. Tip my hat to the Falcons. They got it right with that first pick.
All right, we go through pick 11 through 20 here, so we'll take a look at these picks coming up here. And this is when Levis started dropping like a rock because Atlanta needs a quarterback. They didn't take him.
Right.
And I said, whoa, that's the stopgap. He goes there. They develop him. He's 4 behind Richardson. Now we take a look at some of these picks here. Green Bay getting Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher there, after Aaron Rodgers leaves. Were they going to help out Jordan Love with an offensive player? No, they didn't do that. And then I go down to Christian Gonzalez. And to me, when you start looking at these picks overall and some of the players that dropped overall, I just thought, I was surprised to see Gonzalez drop later than he did. And also Forbes, the cornerback, EA, that's another guy that I thought might have been able to go late to the first round where the Raiders could jump in and get Porter or that player right there. I thought they were going to go in that direction. And that, to me, changed everything because I knew corners were coming off the board
and this
for
is
the
a good
silver and black.
This is a good job. This is a good year for cornerbacks. And you had different types. You had the guys who can play inside, guys who can play outside. Obviously, if you're a football team, you're drafting their first round, you want someone you can stick on the outside part of the football field and say, hey, go get that guy. Right?
No doubt.
You know, and they have to have the length. They have to have the long speed. You have to see some things on film. And I just thought the one corner Emmanuel was just too small. I mean, he's 166, and his frame is not built to put on much more. But again, you have to look at the systems,
right?
And you can fit him in his system. Maybe we can utilize our Will linebacker or our Sam linebacker to make sure he does a great job of containing the football and pushing it in, and our safeties are better tacklers. So it depends on where you go, but I was really surprised the run on the cornerbacks went like that, and then Gonzalez didn't go as high as Witherspoon.
Well, that's the thing that sticks out to me, EA. Christian Gonzalez did not go as high. I thought that there were teams that were before the New England Patriots that needed a corner, and the fact that he fell as far as he did. We saw Witherspoon come off the board high first, but then Christian Gonzalez had to wait to number 17. But New England could, they made their little trade with Pittsburgh, and then they got the guy that they wanted, and I think he's part of a good system.
Yeah, I wanted to see Cansey from Pittsburgh, the nose tackle, the interior player, be ready for the Raiders on the back end. You hear I'm still going down that road that I thought they were going to come in on the back end and get one of these players, but maybe it was just too much, right? You make those phone calls, but Cansey ends up going there to Tampa Bay, and I think that's a good pick for them. And Jigba, the first wide receiver to go off the board, he goes off the board, and I think he's a really good player for Seattle. So they got Geno. They have Lockett. They got some good players on the outside for Geno. And then Seattle also made that early move in the draft where they got the corner that they wanted. So maybe Pete Carroll had a master plan here overall, as all the mock guys had Jalen Carter there, and we just focused on that. And Pete got out of there with two unique players that are going to add to both sides of the ball.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, corner is a huge deal up in Seattle. It's kind of the style you play. He's not that style, but again, it's about talent. You have the talent, you can make him fit in your system. And I think he did a great job. The receivers, again, are another position this year. Didn't go really, really high. And then they went on that little spurt. And I think they're all similar to the corners to where you play inside or outside. You're either a speed guy or a big guy. There's no combination. There's no kind of players who I think are going to be ultimately like the best receivers in the league this year. They're all fit in systems, right? I mean, have the Ohio State guy, he's an inside guy, so he's going to work the slot. TCU's guy, he's a big, going to the Chargers.
Home run hitter.
Yeah, he's a big guy. So they've done a good job at receiver the last couple of years of having just dynamite, get them into the system, and they would just be incredible receivers. I think this year are more spot type of receiver.
I want to go with the Chargers receiver here, Johnson, for a second, because look at the size of him. If you're looking at the graphic, the Charger receivers, Lincoln, you've called all these games. They're never available.
No.
There's one always out. Either Mike Williams is out, Keenan Allen's out. They're never completely healthy. I think the Raiders have gotten a lot of breaks in the last 3 years, not seeing them at full strength. And now this kid, you throw him in here. Again, that guy's going to line up in the slot and on the outside, and he is going to be a handful to guard in this rivalry.
Well, I mean, it falls in line with what they have on the roster right now, big receivers. Williams and Keenan Allen are big receivers. And so, the Chargers, notoriously, especially with their quarterback, has been able to toss the ball around. And Herbert's not going to fall short with having this receiver here.
But what's the strength of the Chargers? It's been their running back, Eckler. It's been the offense there. Maybe not the health, as we pointed out, but I just thought the Chargers maybe wanted to get a little bit stronger on defense in the battle between Mahomes and Russell Wilson in the AFC West. I wasn't shocked, but I was kind of surprised they went receiver that early.
Me too, because they signed Keenan Allen back, right? And you have Austin Eckler, who does a great job of catching the ball out of the backfield. He's a dynamite runner, spark plug type of guy. You still have Big Mike, but maybe the injury bug was kind of in their ear a little bit.
I think a lot of teams in this division, and we had it at one point, when you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, you're not so much feeling that you're going to be able to slow down that offense. It might be that you just want to keep pace with it.
Yeah.
You want to score as much as they do.
Keep them off the field.
Exactly. So there's a thing where you commit to offense, the offensive powerhouse, so you can score touchdowns equally. You know, much like you have teams in the NBA who want to compete with Golden State, who went out and just got more three-point shooters.
Yeah, you're right.
Rather than trying to bolster up their defense, let's get more shooters.
One of the best sound bites was Micah Parsons, because Dallas got Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle, and he chirped back at the Eagles, you're not going to be able to run that quarterback sneak. Remember how they ran that
certainly.
automatically?
Certainly.
And Micah Parsons, that drove him crazy.
Yeah.
He couldn't line up right over the ball.
couldn't stop it.
And he couldn't stop it. And he chirped right back at the Eagles saying, you're not going to be able to do that.
And let me tell Micah Parsons, you can't stop that.
Yeah.
There should be more teams that run it. You can't stop it. There's no way that you can prevent a team from getting a yard or two on a quarterback sneak. If you have a center,
when your quarterback is able to, I'm not sure what he's squatting nowadays, 500-something pounds, and then Kelsey at center.
Just behind that offensive line.
Yeah.
We wedged. We were taught to wedge. You create a big V with a pocket for your quarterback, and you're told to push. I don't have to push much. I just have to push. And if I get leverage on the defensive line, meaning that they're over me or I'm higher than, low man's wins. It's like a bulldozer. You're not stopping it. And I don't know why more teams don't run it. So I'm just a little side note.
Because they're running behind you. They're running behind him on the right side. Let's get to the trades, and we started off with this a little bit. I think you guys are both historians of the game and great players. I think we're going to see now maybe a trend going forward where a team is going to do what Arizona tried to do and what Houston was able to pull off. Houston decided that we are going in, and we are going in big, and we're going second and third. So I think Arizona got a lot in return. Well, that 24 first-round pick is the one that stares out at me. So Arizona saw the value there. And EA, I bet you Arizona was blown away on who called. I bet you they're sitting in the war room ready to get about 7, 8 calls. They were working the phones with the GMs, and all of a sudden, they're like, hold on, you won't believe this. The team that just picked wants to go again.
Yeah.
You think this will be a trend for the future of this sport going forward, that aggressive?
For teams that need multiple players to help them win. Because we know now, since the past maybe 5 or 6 years, the window closes very fast.
Good point.
On winning. And fan bases are very finicky. And you have people who are moving into your town who weren't from there, who are not going to be as loyal if you don't win. So if you need multiple players to really represent what you're trying to do, yes, I see this as a trend. Now, if you have a team that's in the middle of the pack that still has good players in their football team, you're not going to see this kind. But for teams who are trying to make an impact and have been losing for years, I think this is something that they can definitely
Well, you're
do.
a hooper. You play hoops, and you know the NBA now. Remember the Rudy Gobert? They give up like all those picks for one guy, and then you go, well, they don't have a draft now for almost a decade, but no one cares in the NBA.
No,
Lincoln, no one in the NBA cares. They don't care about first-round picks, let alone second.
Well,
they're just trying to get the best
Much
player.
like Phoenix did with Brooklyn, get Kevin Durant. You know, we're talking about NBA. Houston still has a first-round pick. They got that first-round pick that they gave to Arizona. They got it from Cleveland. So they still have a first-round pick next year. So and their thing is that the reason why they gave up a multitude of picks is because they want to win now. And if you think about it, that other first-round pick that they gave away to Arizona, if they win, it's going to be a later pick.
Well, that's interesting on that because we want to win here now.
Certainly.
But that's an aggressive move. You don't see Dave Ziegler, who has the 7th pick, take the 7th pick and then go, I want the 8th.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's something that we're going to remember this conversation in years to come. So as we take a look at all the picks and some of the trades that were up here, talking about shaking things up here in New England and Pittsburgh and the Chicago pick, the Philadelphia pick, that was massive because that brought Jalen Carter.
Yes.
Jalen Carter came in on that.
To a team that already has a deep defensive line.
How do you think Chicago's going to think, looking years back when they said we could have had Bryce Young, we have Justin Fields, we're good, but we could have had Bryce Young if he turns out to be great, and we could have had Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
Right? So those are two, it always haunts a team when you look back 5 years from now and say, oh, we could have had him.
Especially Chicago, because you think about what their identity has been, what they wanted to be, and to miss out on maybe a defensive lineman who's going to be able to play 7 or 8 years and really be a really good pro, right? To be a trendsetter in the middle of the football field.
Well, I disagree, guys, because I think Chicago needed offensive line help badly. They needed offensive line help. And if they want to talk about keeping Fields standing upright or not getting hurt, you had to address that offensive line. So just trading back one pick, you know what I mean, or what they did to get to number 9, I don't mind it as much. I really don't. I don't mind the pick. I'm surprised who they chose, but I don't mind the pick.
You both played for Mr. Davis,
yes,
the Maverick.
Yeah.
Right? When you see stuff like that, do you think of Mr. Davis when he ran the war room and standing over everybody and going Janikowski in the first round or some of the moves to go get players? Right.
Specific players who, that's our guy. And that's why I'm saying Chicago. You think about the Bears, you think about defense, and that guy is there.
But they got to protect that quarterback.
Yeah, they do. They do. But they don't win without defense. They don't win without defense. And maybe they can went back in and got an offensive lineman. But if that guy if Carter turns out to be a beast.
Chicago still has a lot of picks left.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Mike Florio, who put out a tweet here. Really count on him and a lot of the insiders for their content. Per source, the Titans, Falcons, and Raiders were desperately trying to trade back to the bottom of the round 1 last night. Whoa. Okay, he uses the term desperately. So you look at who they got there to trade back. What does that say? We're going to ask Dave Ziegler about it personally, but Florio's saying they wanted to move back desperately, probably to get more picks. Look, I don't know what the Raiders were doing. We're not supposed to know, but they got the player they wanted, EA. But if they were trying to move back and still get multiple players, we'll see what happens. But when we come back, too, we're going to get into how important today is. How important today is. Just a quick response from you here until we come back on. This, to me, is a defining day for Dave Ziegler. He was going to get a good player at 7. We knew that.
Yeah.
Now, can he really pounce? And I think he's going to show us what he's really made of today.
And yesterday, he's there. He's 7. You've done the interviews. You've taken all the advice from your scouts. Today, though, everything is on the table. I mean, you could trade. You can get multiple picks together to go and get another guy. Today is really about, how you believe in yourself and in your vision.
When we come back, we're going to look at the Tyree pick again. Lincoln and Eric are going to have some comments on that and the social media reaction to the Raiders' first pick as we continue with our Day 2 NFL draft coverage from HQ.
Fans, you can upgrade your event experience to the best seats in the house with our premium seating options. Now is your chance to enjoy an unforgettable time with family and friends in our state-of-the-art suite and loge seats. Limited inventory is available for all upcoming events. So be sure to visit Raiders.com/suites today to learn more about our premium seating offerings.
Right place, right time, right team. Went to Colgate, Hamilton, New York, majored in economics and played 3 years of varsity football there and enjoyed every moment of it. Back then, the draft was, I think, in April. It was early. I was still in school. We were sitting in the bar, and somebody told me that I had just got drafted. And really? I didn't have agents calling me saying, Mark, I'd like to represent you after you get drafted. This came out of nowhere. I knew I had to give it a shot. I would be ever wondering whether I could have made it or not. It was just a thrill when I knew that I was the Oakland Raider fullback.
Van Egan plowing for what appears to be a Raider first down.
One thing led to the next, and it was 10 years later.
Veteran from Colgate, the all-time Oakland rusher.
I was very lucky and most fortunate that I was drafted in the 3rd round. I thanked Mr. Davis after my rookie year. He said, you'll see, you didn't waste your 3rd round pick.
It is draft season. And with that, it's our pleasure now to welcome you to the Raiders NFL Draft Podcast.
This is a very exciting time. We get a chance to join the nation, Raider Nation, talk a little bit about the draft.
The Raiders very well positioned in terms of draft resources, draft capital.
This will be a fascinating watch as we get closer to the draft and kind of see how the Raiders put the pieces of the puzzle together.
We've got a lot to cover here over the next 8 weeks, and so excited to be here on this Raiders NFL Draft Podcast.
Raider Nation, we're ready. We're here. Draft Party 2023. Let's go.
We are at Marquee at the Cosmopolitan. The energy in here is amazing.
Looking forward to having a good time with my friends, seeing us pick a good draft pick.
Getting ready for the future.
Can't wait. I can't wait every year for football.
The Las Vegas Raiders select Tyree Wilson.
I am excited. I'm excited for Raider Nation. I'm excited for our team.
You know, his journey starts now, so I'm excited to take him under my wing, you know, me and Chandler, and just get better every single day.
You're going somewhere. You're going to be able to start living your dream for real. I was just like, it's the greatest feeling. Can't nothing beat it.
This is really just the beginning of, the offseason, and now we can definitely look forward to seeing the guys and supporting them on the field.
Welcome to our Day 2 NFL Draft coverage with Lincoln Kennedy, Eric Allen. I'm JT. We're inside Raiders headquarters, and they have a busy day in front of them. Thanks for joining us on all of our platforms here. Coming off a big night, busy day yesterday, and it just gets busier as the Raiders have a lot of picks going into Day 2. So, Lincoln, I want to talk about the youth of this defense. Very important sound bites from Dave Ziegler on this. Max is a young player, Merrick, Hobbs, now Tyree. You got a core group of guys, as we're looking at here, 25 years old or younger, and Max got a contract extension. Merrick, I don't know if he's worth a contract extension right now unless he elevates his game. And I'll say the same thing about Nate Hobbs. This year coming up for Nate is a really big one, and Tyree Wilson will be here for a while. He's the 22-year-old. So, Lincoln, looking at that and taking an idea of what they're trying to do to keep a core together with all the misses they've had on defense over the last couple of drafts, this is the core.
Well, Nate Hobbs has got to find a way to stay healthy, first and foremost. He's been an impact player since the Raiders had him. And, of course, he stood out playing that nickel corner, which, as you know, EA is a very difficult position to play. But he stood out, took on the challenge of stepping out to the outside. Now he just needs to stay on the field. You know, as far as Merrick, where he fits in this defense is yet to be seen yet. This style of defense has yet to be discovered. This is a big year for him as far as, to me, in his development. And I still think that even with him and Epps back there, they're going to need help and maybe address it in this draft. But drafting the foundation of a core defense is very difficult these days because it's hard to maintain that stability or that consistency when you have so much turnover with coaching philosophies. A lot of coaches are in one year and gone the next, if they can't get it right or slow it down. And the reason why Coach Hunter was brought in here was to slow down that Kansas City offense. And you got to have the players to do that. So, by drafting Wilson where they did, you get an impact rusher. You've got you got Crosby there, obviously, but you've got a young foundation of core players that you can rely on. Now, they need to establish that on every level. It still needs to happen on linebacker as well as corner.
Yeah, you came into the league on one of the greatest defenses of all time, and you left with the Raiders as a veteran on a really good defense. What about the core of the youth? When you were a young player, did you notice the young players around you, or are you just looking at the veterans, the stars on that team? How important is this going forward?
And I'm going to go back to both of our favorite players. And wherever I was, and it was a good defense, and we're lucky to have had and found Max. But you build a defense from inside out. Greg Biekert, whether it's Jerome Brown in Philadelphia with Byron Evans at middle linebacker and Andre Waters or Wes Hopkins at safety. Defenses that are going to stay around and be around are built from inside out. The one name that I didn't see on there or position represented as our young guys, defensive tackle, middle linebacker, and a free, strong safety like. Right? Those are the key areas on defense that we're missing, and we can't build a great defense without that type of middle, inside kind of presence that features each and every week.
Lincoln, staying on the defensive side, there are young players here, but there's a lot of guys competing for backup roles.
Certainly.
Oh, the depth is amazing. I mean, you look at the roster, and I went through it again last night. There's a lot of second-tier backup players going to fight to either start, be a backup, or go to the practice squad or get cut.
Right.
There's a lot of guys on this roster.
Right.
Spillane was brought in and Epps was brought in. You mentioned Merrick and Hobbs. We still didn't draft a corner yet.
Right.
And we're going to get to that coming up there.
Right.
So there's still a hole at corner to try to get a starting corner. And after you get out of the second round, you get into the third round, you're talking about hoping to get a corner that can eventually start, not having a day one shutdown.
No, it's good to have backups. It's good to have, reserves that can come in and play. And we've seen some guys kind of develop over the last couple of years. Robertson's one that comes to mind as it came in as a backup and tried to maybe worked himself in the starter role. But to your point, JT, you still need positions. They still need a corner. I still think they need a cover safety. I still think they have to address that. And the thing and the reason why is because you have so many good tight ends and backs coming out of the backfield that you can't rely on your corners or your linebackers. Now Spillman is one of those guys that is one of those linebackers I think can cover, which helps against playing against teams like the Chargers come to mind, especially with Eckler coming out of the backfield. But we saw last year how not having that luxury at linebacker, at least to be able to cover guys out of the backfield, really hurt the Raiders.
Yeah. Well, EA, what jumps out at me too is that this first pick in the second round, where we're going to spend most of the second hour on that player has to play.
Yes.
And you could go into the first round, you could trade back into the first round, and you know you're going to get that player. Now, you should be able to get that player with this first pick, and we're going to go through all of that. But Epps, who I saw at the draft party there, he's the type of player they went out and got to start. They got Spillane to go out and start, not compete. But you remember Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski. Same guys.
Yeah.
They were brought in to start, and they didn't play very well, and they were out of here. So those two players, Epps and Spillane, in the middle of the field are going to be really important. They have to stick. They have to prove in training camp in the preseason they're the guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's been a difference here on just take practice, for instance. You go to practice, and it's your professional football, and it's kind of, the pace is professional. I think with our football team, because we have so many young players, we should go to practice, and it should seem more like a college practice. It should be a lot of hustle, a lot of competition, guys shouting, guys, calling things out, communicating. It should be a very lively practice if we're doing things the right way, and that's why we have a lot of these younger players who are going to come into this football team and compete to try and find their way on this team.
Let's take a look at some of the social media reaction to the pick of Tyree Wilson. First from Max Crosby. Welcome to the nation. Again, I was there when he got that and started tweeting. He was electric in that crowd. And a lot of other guys in this league wouldn't have been. A lot of other guys in this league would be, hey, I'm the big
what
guy.
are you doing?
This is my position. I'm the Pro Bowler at this position. And he and Chandler were fantastic there. We'll take a look at another one from an opponent coming up, but same school. Take it easy on me, big dog. And that's coming from the guy. That's the guy in the NFL. What do you, when you see that,
I love
what
that.
do you expect?
You love because there's some respect right there.
Yeah.
He knows what this guy's capable of doing. Obviously, Texas Tech Raider guys, but we know, and I'm pretty sure Tyree knows that he has to get after Patrick Mahomes.
No doubt about it. Lincoln, let's take a look at the quarterback and the opponents coming up here and what we're going to have to deal with next year. Oh, I forgot about Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo's there on the schedule.
Yeah.
The Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Tua, Miami's a good team. Russell Wilson, the Raiders have been on top of. Justin Herbert and Mahomes. So that's who the Raiders. Now it makes sense why Tyree Wilson
That's
is here.
9?
Right there.
So we're obviously we play Patrick twice, Justin twice, and Russell twice. That's 9 ball games against quarterbacks who can do it all. Throw from different platforms, get out of trouble, run, scramble, make the deep throw. They have tight ends, receivers. Yes, that's why we need that pass rush there.
I think that's why Lincoln also talked about the cover safety.
Yeah,
too.
I want to add a little caveat to the conversation about how the Chandler Jones and Max Crosby should feel. I remember when the Raiders drafted Langston Walker in the first round out of Cal. I remember having a conversation with Al Davis back then, and he said, I want you to groom him to be the next you. And so I never felt threatened by a guy being drafted high at tackle spot. I knew what I was capable of as a player. I knew that I was going to be on the field. And if he passed me up, then my time was done. But in this situation, you should never feel threatened. And EA, you can attest to this.
Right.
You have young corners who will come in, but you know what you can do. They can literally replace the NFL every year with the amount of guys that come out of college if they wanted to. But you can't coach experience. You can't replace, you can't really replace that experience.
That's right.
That's on the field. And you can't replace the knowledge of the game, learning how to be a professional. And so many young guys fall off of that, not knowing how to be a professional because they come in with all this hype and they don't live up to the expectations. That's why it was pleasant to see a guy like Max Crosby, who was drafted in the 4th round, to reach such a high level. Because no one expected it.
Yeah.
Now everyone's scratching their head. What is this Eastern Michigan kid doing? You know what I'm saying? And now you're looking at these smaller schools. So it's good for everybody. But that's why you can't coach heart and you can't coach determination. And we'll see what this kid is made of.
All right, coming up next, Bucky Brooks is going to join us. He's really good with his mock and what we're going to do day 2. Bucky's got the answers, especially with that first pick coming up in a few hours here. This is our draft coverage, day 2.
You're listening to Upon Further Review. I'm your host, Eddie Pascal.
Good morning, Raider Nation.
Welcome to Raiders Roundtable. JT along with Q Myers.
He dissects the play quickly and makes the move to the football.
The Raiders selection in Kansas City.
With the 7th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Tyree Wilson, defensive end, Texas Tech.
All right. So, I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is still back there, but he has a close-up look of somebody who's coming to go hunt him with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones having Tyree Wilson added to that defensive line in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and DJ, as you get started with all this, you mentioned about how they have to go hunt these people down. Rich just mentioned it. Max Crosby could not be happier right now. All that pressure he's added, he's needed that running mate Chandler Jones last year. This guy this year in a rotation is pretty strong.
Yeah, Chandler Jones did not play as well as they had hoped when they made that move. So if you're struggling to get to the quarterback, which they were, and you're not taking the football away, which they were, they decided front to back. That's how they're going to operate. Go get more pass rush, and maybe that'll help them take the ball away on the back end.
There were some concerns with the foot injury with Tyree that apparently has gone by the wayside. I will say I got to cover one of his games. He played at TCU this last year, and obviously loved watching him on tape. But CD, as you know, you get to those games, you can go down on the field, and I was like, I want to see this guy. There we go. That's kind of what I saw as a guy that is just. He is central casting on the edge in the NFL.
I have to ask you guys real quick. Every year, who is the chiropractor for the commissioner after this is over?
Tyree Wilson.
Because he takes some hits along the way and he goes. And with Tyree Wilson going, he is this year's Trayvon Walker, DJ, because this is the traits aspect of it. Will Anderson's production doubled it in terms of sacks.
Look at his comp on the bottom of the screen. It was Chandler Jones, who now is going to be his teammate. When you have 35 and 5/8 inch arms, that suit we just saw was not off the rack. I can promise you that. This guy uses that length. He attacks blocks. He plays aggressive. He wants to be always moving forward. He's going to be able to close the backside with his speed. You see the power, speed to power. And again, those long arms of his, he gets into the chest of a tackle and it's over. Again, watch him just collapse that inside long arm. He did not see a lot of great offensive tackles on his schedule this year. That's going to be an adjustment for him. But this dude has a lot in his body. He's got tremendous upside.
Every audition is super special, and that's the first moment that you and your team bond and click.
Being with my sisters and dancing is just unlike any other feeling I've ever experienced.
Welcome back to day 2 of our draft coverage inside Raiders HQ. JT along with Lincoln Kennedy, Eric Allen, and now Bucky Brooks, kind enough to join us. NFL.com, NFL Network, all of his other platforms. He's everywhere, especially around the draft. And Bucky, welcome in again. And we want to start off with you with the pick, Tyree Wilson. Did you see this coming? Did he fall to the Raiders? When did the Raiders put him on their radar?
Look, man, I think it's a great pick. And I think this is an old school Raider pick. When you look at Tyree Wilson, he looks like a guy that would play with the Raiders. You look at the long arm, 86-inch wingspan. You look at the athleticism that he plays with, the versatility, being able to play inside and outside, kind of the demeanor that he plays with. And talking to him a couple of days ahead of the draft, he talked about playing with violence and destroying people and dominating. So all of those things embody the brand. But he's a high IQ player who has some nastiness to him. And the fact that he gets to sit behind Max Crosby and Chandler Jones and really learn the craft while he's rotating in, I can't think of a better way to bring him into the league.
Yeah, for sure, Bucky. Great to join us here. And Bucky, you talked about versatility. You think that's the way the Raiders go from now on? Whatever player they draft in the second or third round, he's going to be a guy that has to be versatile.
And I think that versatility is not only like positional versatility, EA. I think guys that have a lot of things in the toolbox. I heard you guys talking about the secondary. To me, when you look at the line of quarterbacks that you guys listed up there, your DBs need to have the ability to play press. They need to play off. They need to understand how to play man and zone. And they must have high IQs, because to defend the quarterbacks that you're going to face, you have to be able to change your game plan up. You're not going to be able to sit in cover 3 and cover 2 and defend the quarterbacks that you're defending. And so because of that, the challenge is finding guys who have all of those tools. And so that'll be the challenge. But that's something that has to happen today, because as you get beyond today, the quality of DBs declines significantly. So I would expect this to be a DB heavy day if that's the position that you want to address.
And Bucky, when you look at Bucky, when you look at this team and where we are right now with the draft picks that we have, obviously, and the number of draft picks coming up, what do you address the biggest need for day 2 you think the Raiders need to address?
Well, you got to take care of the secondary, because number one thing that you got to do to win the division, you got to be able to handle the quarterbacks. You got Pat Mahomes, you got Russell Wilson, you got Justin Herbert. All of those guys also added weapons on the outside. So you must be able to match up to the basketball teams that they're putting out there. So secondary has to be one. But also offensively, you got to figure out what you want to do on the offensive line. Like there's a lot of conversation about offensive tackle and moving guys around. And so you talk about versatility, guys that might be able to play inside and outside or multiple positions, so you can put the best 5 on the field. So we talk about that versatility and being able to cross-train people. I think that has to be in the background of everybody that is drafted by the Raiders.
Bucky Brooks joins us. Bucky, got to ask you, Witherspoon wasn't there. So would the Raiders have taken him over Tyree, you think, if they didn't jump and Witherspoon won it a little bit earlier? Because I thought they were going corner first and then going to go back to the line with what they have with Max. What'd you think of that when it was happening in real time and Seattle made their pick, knowing what the Raiders had? And Carter's still on the table, Jalen Carter. So there must have been a lot going through your mind at that point after your mock.
Yeah, no, but mock drafts are one thing. Like the way that you rate players is another. Mm-hmm. And so the one thing that EA and Lincoln knows, look, man, it's a lot easier building your team from front to back than back to front. When you can rush the pass, it allows you to do so much other stuff in the back end. You can play with lesser corners if your pass rush is consistent. No matter how well you cover, if you can't get to Pat Mahomes and all that, they eventually will uncover. So to me, Tyree Wilson, if those guys were on the board at the same time, you got to take the pass rusher over the corner. And because of the depth that was there, it just made more sense. Go get the pass rusher, because you still can get a comparable corner that can do things in the second and third round.
Yeah. Bucky, talk us through the quarterback situation that happened yesterday and then what's left today.
So, like, a lot of conversation is going to be on Will Levis. And I'll say this, EA, maybe the guys on our side did Will Levis a disservice, because what happens when it comes to mock drafts and all that, guys are playing a soap opera, but the prospects are real people, real characters. Yeah. And so Will Levis was a guy that got caught up in the mix where people are trying to figure out who's going to take what. And so you talk about him as a top 5 pick. But when you look at the tape, he wasn't a top 5 talent. Okay. He didn't play at a top 5 level at Kentucky. And so now you're talking about a guy that is more of a developmental prospect, a guy who has talent in terms of arm talent, athleticism, but he wasn't a finished product. And if you're talking about a guy that needs the red shirt, you don't take red shirts in the top 10. And so now that he's outside of the first round, if he's drafted there, there's not the pressure to put him on the field right away. And then the other quarterback, Hendon Hooker, I'll be honest, Hendon Hooker outplayed Anthony Richardson and Will Levis in the same conference, facing the same competition. The issue that people have with him, age, he's 25, and the fact that he played in a spread system that is a little different than most. It was kind of like the Art Browse, old Baylor spread, where you didn't see quarterbacks come out of that. But I can tell you, he's from North Carolina. His dad is a quarterback legend in high school, played at North Carolina A&T. So he's a quarterback through and through. It's just a matter of when do you take him and how long it would take for him to be healthy. But in terms of the intangibles and IQ, he's exactly what you look for in a quarterback.
Bucky, were there any picks in the first round that surprised you?
Well, all of it was a bit of a surprise, Lincoln, because like this year, so in most years, Al Davis, who taught it to Ron Wolf, they would tell you 18 to 24 guys are first round picks in every draft. This year, they were about 15 to 17. So after you got past about pick 15, those guys rated 16 to 45 are all in a cluster. And depending on like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, guys that you like, guys that you fit schemes. And so it was kind of a mess. And so like, who knows? We won't know until these guys play. But the number one thing that happens like today going forward, fit and scheme. How does this player fit in your scheme? Because that will determine whether they're rated higher on your board compared to other people's board, because it's all about how they play for you.
Bucky, I can't stop talking about Houston going up from 12 to 3. I mean, this just doesn't happen historically, especially with the team that had a high pick already. What do you think of that going forward? How is the league evolving from your perspective and scouting with the GMs as a former player when you see something like that? I won't call it a radical move, but one of the more aggressive moves in draft history. Will we see this again in years to come?
You'll continue to see it because you have a younger set of general managers. And so they're not as tied to the picks as other general managers were. We grew up in a time where everyone coveted those picks, held onto those picks like they were valued currency. Well, now guys are valuing the player over the pick, because you can have a bunch of picks, but can you turn those guys into blue chip players? And so what the Texans are saying, I want the best quarterback that I can find and give me the best pass rusher. I'll worry about the other stuff later. And so that's why they made the move to get Will Anderson.
Bucky, take me into your world. How has the evaluation process for guys on your side changed or gotten better or worse?
Look, man, I think the thing that's always a challenge is, do you scout for the mock draft, or are you scouting as if you're working for a team? Because if you're working for a team, then you're looking at players and you're comparing against the legends that have played, right? So when you play against a Derek Thomas and a Bruce Smith and those guys, you're looking at Tyree Wilson in comparison to how does he create that fear that those guys create? And so you grade it accordingly. So it's not about getting it right on draft day for the mock. It's about telling, hey, look, this is what this player is. This is what he would be in the league, and he should be able to play at this level by the end of his third year. That's how it has to always stay. It has to be true to, would he want to be in the huddle with us? Would you want him in the huddle with us? If not, you don't want him. Like, that's as pure as you can say. Do I want this guy on the team with me? Could he play with us? If not, then you look for other guys that would fit.
All right, Bucky, Raider Nation is on edge. I'm sure they're blowing you up on Twitter about this next pick, because I wanted to see him jump back into the first round. If it was Cansey, if it was Porter Jr., someone there, but Dave Ziegler didn't do that. For what reason, in your opinion? And then secondly, the follow-up, who's up there that the Raiders can wait for? Because I don't know if Pittsburgh's going to let Porter get away, especially to the Raiders. And then the teams in front of Las Vegas there, what does Dave Ziegler need to be nervous about with the teams in front of him if he wants to get one or two specific players?
Okay, so you're talking about Joey Porter Jr. So here's the thing about Joey Porter Jr. The name might be more fashionable than the game. Okay, so he is a press corner. He is nose to nose. But if you want him to back off and play with vision, key to three-step, that's not in his skill set right now. So he may not be the pick for the Raiders based on what they want to do. There are other corners who could be up there that are available. So if you think about a guy like Haley Ringo that played at Georgia, world-class sprinter who has some athleticism, played in a diverse system at Georgia, that might make him better suited to play in the scheme that Patrick Graham employs. There's a kid at Utah, Clark Phillips, who I would say might be the best pound-for-pound DB that's in this draft. Plays nickel, and when I mean he plays nickel, he plays in the slot and knows how to play it. Has 6 interceptions, super athletic, has a skill set that EA would love because he can play off. He understands hash split rules. He does all that stuff that is advanced when it comes to it. So there are a couple of corners that you can take in the second and third round to kind of fill your need. And at safety, there's a guy, Brian Branch, that's coming out of Alabama. He is a natural slot defender, meaning he tackles like a safety, he covers like a corner, he has a high IQ, so you can bounce him around because he's been well schooled by Nick Saban.
Man, you're on it, Bucky. I tell you, you hit it right on the head with Porter, because if this was the Raiders 13, 14 years ago, I mean, he's locked down. I mean, he's standing over receivers. He's jamming them at the line of scrimmage, not allowing them to go. So again, I do agree on that. I think cornerback wise in our division, you're facing all these talented quarterbacks. You have to find a way scheme wise to get someone there who is not afraid of that kind of competition each and every week, right?
Oh, look, it's all about the mentality. And the only way you can determine their mentality is you got to meet with them. You got to meet with them. And you got to put their tape on, and hopefully you can see them when they face a dog, and you can walk them through the process. What are you thinking here? The guy's caught 3 balls on you. So what's your mindset? Do you now all of a sudden play 9 yards off when you've been pressing the entire game? Like, all of those things you want to see, because like it matters, because the first thing they're going to do is still old school in some part. Sean Payton is going to put a yellow penny on a corner, and they're going to throw at the young corner all week and see if he cowers. And so the mentality matters more than the skill set. Are they wired the right way? Because it's hard to play corner as a young guy.
Bucky, all this talk about defense has got me frothing at the mouth as an offensive guy. So tell me about offensive linemen. Who stands out to you, possibly a day 2, or maybe even fall later in the day 2 to possibly help the Raiders?
Okay, so Big Link, I knew you were going to ask me about offensive line. So there's a kid out of Syracuse, Matthew Bergeron, played multiple positions. I think he has 39 starts. He's played at left tackle, he's played at right and left guard. He's bounced around all over the place. And so as you're thinking about someone who can come in and play, where you're trying to put the best 5 out there, he's the one. Now, if you're okay with small school guys, you can talk about Cody Mock that played at North Dakota State and those guys. If you want one of those old school big guys that Mr. Davis used to like, DeJuan Jones from Ohio State, look, he blocks the sun out. He's big, but is he going to play the kind of style of ball that you want to play? Because if you're not going to play rock'em sock'em robot football where you're going to mash, he might not be the guy. And so there are a lot of guys, particularly inside, that are available. It really comes down to style. What is the style going to evolve to with Jimmy G and really Josh McDaniels kind of settling in and really establishing this is how we want to play offensively?
Bucky, I'm fascinated with the good tight ends that are left. There's some really good ones. And with Waller gone, Raiders brought in some depth at tight end, but a young player with tremendous upside. I just wonder if the Raiders are going to bite on the eye candy, a Hendon Hooker or a tight end that they value to not be there, and they're going to get the best player available, and that could be 2 of those type of players there, or they're going to go for need. I think the need is corner. The need is linebacker, more aggressive players who can tackle and cover. No one's been able to cover around here at the linebacker position. Kelsey has eaten this team up, and it continues every year. You think about it, they try to bring in players, and they don't mesh with this unit. So what type of player does Patrick Graham look to Dave Ziegler and say, Dave, I need one more of these guys, and then go get your offensive lineman and tight end?
Okay, so it's really, really tough when it comes to linebacker, because this linebacker class is light in terms of like A-level talent. But there are a few guys that are of interest. If you want the guy that is versatile in terms of being able to be an inside linebacker but come off the edge, Drew Sanders from Arkansas is the guy. 9.5 sacks as a middle linebacker. That doesn't happen. So in nickel situations, he can put his hand in the dirt and come off the edge. He can blitz. If you're looking for someone that can run sideline to sideline, Trenton Simpson from Clemson might be the guy. Fast and athletic, but I'll be honest, the instincts are a step late. He makes up for it with his athleticism, but he's not the guy that like sees it, gets it, and plays one step ahead of the offense, but his athleticism makes up for it. And so as you're thinking about the Travis Kelce factor, you're not going to find a linebacker that can do that. And so it's going to be a problem when it comes to that. You might have to find one of these super safeties that's big enough and physical enough to kind of be your will linebacker, but can also cover.
Talk to me a little about Henley from Washington State. I heard he was a receiver coming into the year and transition to middle linebacker, and he has that kind of skill set that maybe teams are looking for to be a cover middle linebacker.
Yeah, now you can be a cover middle linebacker, but I'm be honest with you, EA, when you play wide receiver, I don't know if you really eat gunpowder and you're going to stick your nose in there. Now, the athleticism and stuff is great, and you can move them around. But let's be honest, we've seen projects come in, and then when it comes time to get nasty, I don't know. Good player, played in the track, can't take anything away from him. But if we're talking about really doing it, man, you kind of prefer someone who has that experience of knocking people around as opposed to a guy that is going to play in space and still trying to figure out. Because remember, we're talking about right now in this AFC with all those quarterbacks, man, I don't know if you have patience to kind of wait for someone to develop and do all that other stuff.
Bucky, last one, a big one. When you look at the concept of this team and what they have, all the moves they made in the offseason, they added a lot of players on this roster, and I think the offense is pretty loaded. Maybe another guard, a tackle. I think they're filled up on offense. And defense, they still have some holes. How many more potential defensive starters do you think the Raiders can get out of day 2 and day 3 that could really have an impact on this team instead of guys that could come in and compete and maybe be starters 2 or 3 years from now? Because there's got to be more players out there that can compete and maybe start and change this defense very rapidly.
Oh, you can find some guys. I mean, you can find some guys like, hey, we've talked about this secondary, but the secondary, there are plenty of guys that can come in and play, whether it's Jordan Battle, Antonio Johnson, on and on. We talked about the corners. So the big thing is, how do you want to play, and can you plug those guys in there? The key to it is the league is changing and evolving. As much as I love defense, right now, the way that you have to play, you got to score points on offense and bend but don't break on defense and be really good in the red zone. And so if you can find guys that can take the ball away, guys that can catch it when it hits them in the chest, that's what the game's evolving to. You got to put the onus on your offense. We need 27 or more points. Defensively, we're going to need a turnover and 2 or 3 stops. And so that's the way you have to play, because the league has made it hard to play, hey, we're going to keep them to 17. It's just too hard with the rules and all the things to say. Defensively, we can play like that and win at a high level. The quarterbacks are too good, and the offenses that we're facing are just too good.
Bucky, you never slow down. I don't know how you do it. You're everywhere. Thanks for making time for us. It's a big day.
Thanks.
Have great day 2 coverage. Thanks for doing this.
Way to go, Buck.
Hey, man, love you guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, Bucky Brooks. Wow.
Yeah.
You have something to say when we come back about what he just said. We're going to get to what Lincoln's ready to roll on our day 2 draft coverage.
Happy draft day. We have an amazingly incredible special guest this morning.
No.
We're here on draft day. We know obviously our GM and our coach are really working really hard to grow and build our team. And all of you have already been drafted. And we want to thank Devontae for gifting all of you with...
It's my pleasure, honestly. This is something that's big for me, the women that I've had in my life and the impact that they've had and how much I appreciate that. I got a house full of women right now. My mom, she was a single mother, didn't get near as much credit as what she should have for, the job that she did in raising me. I think that, it's the same goes for you guys. And I just want to make sure you guys know that the work you do doesn't go unnoticed. So we appreciate you. There you go. Here you are. Of course. Thank you.
This is my first pair.
First pair?
Yeah.
Like I said to her, that's probably one of the better first pairs to start off with. Jordan 03. 1, 2, 3.
I want to take this moment to welcome all of you to Game Changer, honoring Sheldon Adelson and Mark Davis. What exactly is a game changer? It's a person that leads an event, an idea, or procedure that affects a significant shift in the current manner of doing or thinking about something.
Sheldon was an amazing visionary who had the internal fortitude and drive to accomplish his dreams. The Adelson School, which is in itself a great accomplishment, was only one of the many important contributions that Sheldon and Miriam have made to society.
My husband Sheldon built a business empire. He invented new industries. He reshaped entire skylines and coastlines with his genius.
Mark's father, Al, was larger than life and always ready for a fight against all odds. And he was a game changer in sports. Mark took that foundation and changed the face of Las Vegas in a way only a football team could do, and especially the Raiders.
I'm truly humbled to be up here and being honored on the same program of a true game changer of Sheldon Adelson. I think all of us in this room owe Sheldon, Miriam, and the entire Adelson family a great big thanks for everything they've done for us, whether it's building some of the biggest convention centers in the world or the philanthropy and everything else. And I'm just so proud to be associated with them.
Fans, you can upgrade your event experience to the best seats in the house with our premium seating options. Now is your chance to enjoy an unforgettable time with family and friends in our state-of-the-art suite and loge seats. Limited inventory is available for all upcoming events. So be sure to visit Raiders.com/suites today to learn more about our premium seating offerings.
Welcome back to our Day 2 draft coverage at HQ. We're in the headquarters of the Raiders. Lincoln Kennedy, Eric Allen, JT. Thanks for streaming us. Thanks for listening on Raider Nation Radio. We greatly appreciate it. You know, EA, it's that time of year. You come back here. You do a lot of work. You met Tyree first. You sat down. You did a one-on-one with him. Let's reset quickly about that. You had a one-on-one with him. You sat down. He comes to the building first. They give him a tour of Allegiant Stadium today. He gets to see his locker, sees the practice facility close. Instead of a 30 visit, he comes in here and really gets to see the building. How impressed was he?
Yeah, second time he's been in the building, but again, you can just tell how impressed he was first with the facility and what he's going to be able to walk into every day and get better, get stronger, eat right. So all the facilities are here for you to mature into a good player. And the next thing I notice is a humble guy, you know, just a very humble person, kind of understood that this wasn't given to him. He wasn't like in high school, he was going to be here. And I said, you know, what is your high school self saying to you right now? You know, what is that guy saying? He's like, I'm not sure, because I never thought I was going to be that guy walking across the stage. And then the last thing, what I said was, you know, what is the experience going to be like with you the first couple of days of practice with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones? Big smile on his face, you know, and he's like, I can't wait. You know, I can't wait to get better. And he understands that there's a lot of things that he needs to do to get better and develop, but he's still going to be an amazing player.
A Raider his whole life, high school, college, and now.
Right,
he loves talking about that. Lincoln, Bucky said something that lit you up. You really wanted to talk about the offense at the end. You know, Bucky wasn't that high on Joey Porter Jr., and he's talking about the way the league has evolved with offense. And I'm saying it's all about the defense today. You had something to say.
Well, the thing is that it's a feeling that I thought for the last couple of years. When you talk about an offense, let's use Kansas City, for example, as well-skilled and as potent they are to score. What is your philosophy? Once going into it is like, well, let's try to find defense that can slow it down. But Bucky's right. The rules that are around the NFL are meant to create offense. They want to create touchdowns. So when you think about it, you want to try to keep pace if you have an offense. It might come down to where you get one or two stops. When the Raiders really struggled over the last couple of years, scoring in the red zone, scoring touchdowns rather than threes. And I always said, you know, you want to win, you got to win with TDs. You're not going to win with threes. You got to win with TDs. It's the same philosophy. You got to keep pace with these offenses that are around. You got to be able to keep the pace and score as much as they do and score touchdowns. So being effective in the red zone is very high. Yes, I know we've got a tremendous kicking game, and that's fine. Had that special teams, but threes aren't going to get it done. And there have been many times the Raiders have conceded wins because they weren't able to score touchdowns. They've been beat by a certain number of points because they could only settle for threes.
Let's take a look at some of the tight ends that are left here, because as I tried to change my mind yesterday with C.J. Stroud maybe being available, I look at Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. You cannot pass on him. He's a first-round grade. He's the perfect Raider stretch the field guy, possession guy for a Jimmy G. Much highly touted than George Kittle and Darren Waller, at a different level than those two guys when they came out of college, Lincoln. If this guy's available and you pass on him, you're passing on a proven first-round type of player that just dropped to you, maybe because the priority is defense. What happens if he's on the board?
It's really a tough toss-up, because I'll tell you what, Meyer has gotten progressively better with his route-running skills over the last couple of years at Notre Dame. And that's how he got himself in this position. It'd be a tremendous value. But also, here's the thing: don't sleep on Darnell Washington out of Georgia.
Yeah.
And
we
I had
about him
local.
I had a chance to cover Musgrave out of Oregon State. And he's a pretty good one, too. So they've got some number of quality tight ends. But we talked about it when we talked about the podcast earlier, talking about the draft strategy of what's available. Look, you're not going to replace Darren Waller. He's a special talent.
Right.
He's not, in my opinion, he's not really a tight end either. He's more of a glorified receiver, maybe a slot, a big receiver. But what you need here is you do need someone that can stretch the middle of the field, because we've seen how much Jimmy G has relied on that with having Kittle at his disposal. And this style of offense, you do need that capable tight end. So I think it would be very hard to pass at 38.
Yeah, and system-wise, if I'm a defensive player and I know every time the Waller's in the game, you're going to be in 11 personnel, that allows my coordinator to set the defense up for success. Hey, 11 personnel, he's going to be in. We're going to have some kind of passing call for you. And we need a tight end. I think this offense can use a tight end that is a 3-down tight end. He can help you with the blocking game, with our great running attack, and then he can get down the seam. You have to be fearful of that. So now you're kind of putting the defensive coordinator in conflict, because you have the tight end on the football field, and you don't know if it's going to be a run or a pass. So just another kind of weapon in your arsenal as far as offensively, where you kind of can shade and hide what you're trying to do.
Well, they brought in Howard and Hooper, and they've played in this league, and they haven't exceeded expectations. Hooper was a really good player with his Pro Bowls in the past, so they want something out of him. I think that's the reason why I'm starting to think tight end potentially, even though, pull me back, EA, I want to go defense. Pull me back, I want to go defense. But Lincoln's lighting the room up here, because I just think that Hendon Hooker and Mayer being available, Hendon Hooker, I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed the last month on radio that said he's first-round quarterback. If he drops to the Raiders, if the Raiders can trade into the first round and get him again, and he's still available. And the safety you like out of Alabama.
Brian
and
Branch.
You've been talking safety forever with me, because you're not sold on these guys that we have covering the football deep down the field and catching it.
It's kind of funny. I hate to say it, but I can't get it off my mind. If we draft Hendon Hooker, he probably won't play until he's 30 years old.
No.
I'm serious. He's already 25, 26. He's not going to play the next 2-3 years.
Listen. With a quarterback, I don't think age really matters with a quarterback.
Well, maybe not in this game, because so many rules will protect him. But it's something that you have to consider if you got him, maybe as a project, because there's a reason why he didn't go, one of the first 3. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why he didn't go top 5. And of course, I think Bucky Brooks hinted on it, which is absolutely right. The system that he played in, was to say spread is a stretch. I mean, it was beyond spread. That's how wide open this system was.
And that's coming from you, who's in Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. This is not running. This is a true spread offense where you got a lot of go routes, you got a lot of deep hitters, and you're trying to hit that big game ball. And it's a little bit different when you come to the league. You'll have those opportunities, but not every down.
But a place here would give him a chance to sit back and learn.
So he's 30.
Yeah. The offense.
Gotcha. He thinks he's good.
26 and a half. 26 and a half.
I'm just
Come
saying.
on now.
I would say, well, look, I don't want to do this, but it's Dave Ziegler's in charge. I wouldn't want to bring Jimmy G over and say, look, here's Will Levis, here's Hooker. You're going to get the year. You might get 2, but you're not going to get 3. We got our guy. We got our guy early in the draft. We're going to take him and use him. You don't take a guy in the second round if it's Levis or Hooker and say you're not going to play. You're going to play at some point. I'm sold on Jimmy G because of what I expect him to do in the red zone. You called all of Derek Carr's games. You've been here a long time. I just think that Jimmy G, leave him alone. Let him do what he does best with this coach. Read the defense quickly, get the ball out, run the plays that they ran in practice with a bunch of big, skilled weapons, and run the ball. You know, we haven't mentioned Josh Jacobs a lot, who's been franchise tag. I didn't believe last year when me and you were on the sidelines there talking about that at the Hall of Fame game, they played him.
Yeah.
I thought he was gone.
Right.
They were just showcasing him. Then he leads the league in rushing. We got to get him to lead the league in rushing at least one more year. When the guys are able to do that, they can do it for 2-3 years. Then you can't expect them to do it for 4 or 5. So I think my mind has changed with Devontae, what we have with Jacoby Myers, Hunter who's here, Josh Jacobs behind him, and the quarterback who's beaten Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs and has won a lot of big games. This offense is ready to roll. Get out of its way, just execute it. But we got to get off the field, Lincoln, on third down. You call these games, the middle of the field was a giant pillow.
Yes.
And it was wide open for any team and any quarterback. That's got to be corrected tonight.
Well, that's why you're frothing at the mouth with those 12 picks and how you're going to be able to use them. But all the things that you pointed out, JT, you're absolutely right. And with that being said, if you're going to go offensive, I don't think you can pass up a tight end, because one of the things that we had difficulty last year, even though it led the league in rushing, was running outside stretches. And you need a tight end to do that. You need someone to be able to secure the edge to do that. And that's why you talk about Darnell Washington, he's a big guy. You talk about Myers, he's a good, an average size, I would say, blocking wise. He's a better receiver, but you might have to address that position at that 38.
Yeah, I know Darnell Washington. He is an extra tackle over there.
Yeah.
We won't have to worry about reaching the outside with him.
Well, we haven't spent a lot of time on offensive line today.
Yeah.
You got to get. You talk about
really help.
Got to get offensive line.
Yeah, he'd really help out that offensive line, and then he's a big target. Obviously, he's going to garner some respect when he's running down the football field. This football game of ours has turned into situational football, and it's great to be, leading the league in rushing from the 20 to 20. But like you mentioned earlier, the red zone is critical. We need to find a way to be very productive in the red zone offensively, and on the flip side, defensively. I'm not saying we have to finish number one in every category, but we need to find and carve out a space for us that we are really good at one area, whether that is in the red zone where this team tightens up and makes a team have to kick a field goal, we have to find a way to get the ball back. It drives you crazy.
Drives you nuts.
That it should always be like, hey, 20 interceptions are our goal coming into the season, and we just have not had that kind of consistency or I'm not sure what's going on, but we got to get some interceptions.
Red zone play defensively that has hurt us over the last couple of years, and I remember specifically because it happened every time, was covering the tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Covering the tight end around the goalpost. We had nobody that was capable of doing it, and teams just lit us up with the same
Hey, listen,
route.
every coach I've interviewed one-on-one in that studio, I've said the same thing when Kelsey came to town. What are we going to do this time? And it's been tough. When we come back, we're going to get to our picks. Oh, you ready? Yeah,
Let's
you
go.
got your pick?
Let's go.
Lincoln's got,
I got
his
my
pick.
jacket on.
We're ready
I
to
got
go
the
with the
picks.
second
Ready to
round. We'll
go.
have our picks coming up. It's day 2 of our draft coverage at HQ.
Tyree, this is Coach McDaniels. How are you? I'm doing great, buddy. Are you there with your family? That's great. Well, we're going to turn the pick in here, and you're going to be a Raider. So we just wanted to congratulate you. You're really going to help our football team. We're looking forward to integrating you here with our group, and couldn't be more excited to make you a Raider here, bud.
Welcome to Raider Nation, big boy. We're excited, man. Smart, tough, dependable, guys that love football. And we're going to get you better and, keep growing you. And it's going to be a special thing for you. We're really excited for you and your family. Enjoy this moment with everybody. You'll see it coming across the screen. We'll see you here sooner than later.
up, guys? Appreciate it. What's going on? It's really cool. It's really cool. It's different. I like that. Hey, there we go. I gotta get a neighbor or something. Wow. Enormous. Awesome. Can't wait. What's up, guys?
Welcome, Jimmy! Yeah!
Appreciate it. Appreciate it, guys. Hell yeah, let's go. The mindset I'll be bringing to the stadium is just a will to win, honestly. Bring all the guys along, get everyone on the same page, and go win some games here. These fans, I mean, I've played for some good fans in the past, but I've heard Raider Nation is different. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys, hearing you guys, and just feeling you on the field. The way they treat their alumni, I think it's one of the coolest things about the Raiders so far. Just, it's unique. It's very unique. That's what I'm talking about. It's my guy. It was a fumble. It was a fumble. Wow. Raider Nation, the stadium's unreal. Got goosebumps walking in there, and I just can't wait to see it filled up with you guys, man. Hear how loud you guys are and passion we bring. It's gonna be a fun year. Can't wait. See you guys.
You're listening to Upon Further Review. I'm your host, Eddie Pascal.
Good morning, Raider Nation.
Welcome to Raiders Roundtable. JT along with Q Myers.
He dissects the play quickly and makes the move to the football.
Welcome back, everybody, to our Day 2 draft coverage. JT, along with Eric Allen and the great Lincoln Kennedy. We thank Bucky Brooks again as we get to the Raiders pick coming up here in a moment. So it's a very important day here as we get ready for what the Raiders could be doing. Now, Jeremy Fowler put up a tweet here. We'll take a look at this. 4 teams have engaged. The Steelers with legitimate interest in trading up for number 32. That's the first pick coming up in this round. Pittsburgh would need an aggressive offer to move off the pick, given the talent available. It should be the Steelers to stay put. Lincoln, I look at this, I think of Joey Porter as a player that a lot of mocks had going to the Steelers. I didn't expect Will Levis to be day 2. Hendon Hooker I thought was going to go late in the first round. So I understand the accuracy of that tweet. Teams are calling. They want that first pick in the second round.
Well, there's a lot of talent that's available, guys. And the thing is that when you talk about second round on, you talk about value in the picks. And the reason is because in the first rounders, you have to have them a 5-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
And the second rounders on, you can go with a 4-year contract if you're not necessarily sure. But, I always thought the first 3 rounds have got to be impactful players that are possible day 1 starters. That's what I thought for the first 3 rounds. And that's how valuable they are. With the talent that's still remaining out there, it's not surprising that Pittsburgh's getting a lot of offers because there's a lot of teams that will probably want to move up from the position. And then, the currency that a lot of teams have with the picks, it's probably a matter of switching the pick in the second round with Pittsburgh, whoever the team is, and then also give them a little bit more. So right. you got to make it a really truly valuable offer, but not surprising at all, especially with everything.
Lincoln said it perfectly. One of those teams, if it's the Raiders, got to give up, swap the pick, and then give up probably another second for next year or a second and a third to make it. That's probably what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
I would be progressive and aggressive with that if I'm Dave Ziegler. He's got a lot of picks, but as Lincoln said perfectly in the beginning of our broadcast, a lot of teams don't want a 5th or 6th rounder. They got plenty of those.
Yeah.
They want a 2nd and 3rd rounder, EA, to make that move.
Yeah, and you got to understand the makeup of your football team, right? You're making up your football team with some free agents who you trust, who may know your system a little bit. So you don't need those 5th-round guys to come in and just be camp bodies. You already have those guys who you understand and know where they're going to fit. What it comes down to a lot in day 2, especially in this draft, I think, because all of the quarterbacks, they all have flaws, whether it's size or whether it's their accuracy. They all have flaws. And then the second day is you're right. You want to get some starters, some impact players. You look back in 4 or 5 years, those guys have been to a Pro Bowl. They're some of the best players at their position. This is when you get your makeup of your football team. They should fit your system. They should fit your identity. Everything about them should fit who you are as an organization.
Yeah, so we put this up, and if you're listening on radio, we put up the graphic of the picks that the Raiders have remaining here. And I think of the 100 pick. The 100 pick is Darren Waller. I call that the Waller pick. So they have 38, 70, 100, 109. And that's the second, 2/3, and the early fourth. Then it's the fifth, 141, 144. Those are valuable. But I look at the next couple of picks. 38, I'd stay. I'd take the best player available, the best corner, whatever they can do. Then 70, 100, you can package those two. And then go back into the second round if you want. But remember that round 3, 100 is Waller. A lot of Raider fans wanted more than that.
Right.
Remember Lincoln?
Right.
We were talking. They wanted something more. And I said, look, the market didn't. That wasn't the market.
Exactly.
No one was telling Dave Ziegler, I'll give you a second. So we had the Giants was the third. So I'm keeping an eye on that 100th pick. I'd stay and take the best available, all on defense, unless something wild comes. As we talk about tight end, get out of here with the first 4 picks being on defense. My plan from the beginning, EA, was 3 starters and then 1 who's going to compete to start. And then you start off the offseason, and that defense is loading up again.
Yeah, you're looking at your roster, and you feel pretty good about the depth chart. And the guys who are behind the depth chart, practice should be lively. There should be a lot of competition out there at practice, and that's what we know this organization wants to do. But you're exactly right. Coming out of this day, you want to have 2 guys who are, you know what, hey, they're going to come into the room, they're going to be the right kind of guy, and they're going to help our defense get on winning time.
If they didn't want to go with Jacoby Myers, right, because Hunter Renfro's here, they're both slot guys, they spent some money in this offseason on offense, and that's money that could have been spent on an offensive lineman. Reason we're still looking for an offensive lineman was one wasn't brought in.
Right.
I'm talking about a starter.
Right.
And I don't like starting offensive linemen in the 6th, 7th round. I'm sorry, Thayer Mumford, good players. They could come in and play some snaps for you. So is that ship about to sail if the next couple of picks are on the defensive side where you're just going to get a project offensive lineman who clearly isn't here to start, just compete?
I still think you can get one with the second or third picks. You know, the 3rd round picks. I still think you can get. I think you can get a capable starter. I think that this offensive line class is that deep, depending on what you want or what you want out of them. You know, for Thayer Munford, you know, you tip your hat to him because he's definitely tried, but he's got to get his footwork better and able to compete versus the pass. And I still think you have enough versatile tackles out there, versatile linemen out there that can possibly help you, and you can get them in the 3rd round.
Yeah, you know, Brandon Parker's coming off the injury. I've spent some time with him in the offseason. Alex Bars, there's some players here that are good, serviceable players, but they're not stars.
Right.
And I think the offensive line, when we saw the first part of that draft, when they went boom, 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 Paris Johnson, and then we saw them start to go, I think the rest of the teams around the league said, we want to get our tackle now. Now, the best Lincoln available tackles as we look, Syracuse's Bucky Brooks said, and Bergeron's really good. And then the rest of the players here, Ohio State, Jones out of Ohio State, they were there, pro day. They saw him up close. He's familiar with a couple of players on the team. I think that is a player to look forward to. And then Carter Warren out of Pittsburgh got a lot of big snaps in a lot of big games for them. So, as you said, there are a few tackles available.
Cody Mauch, as comes out of a smaller school, North Dakota State, you might want to question his not playing against premier programs, how he's going to stack up. But he showed me a lot of versatility in the film that I saw. So he was special. You can move him around, especially. So there's a lot of serviceable guys, I think, still available.
All right, so let's roll on to see what we think is going to happen here. EA, as we take a look at some of the players available here, if you think of cornerback, Joey Porter Jr. jumps out. That's the popular name.
Yeah, Bucky kind of rained on our parade on that one.
Yeah, we're going to get to some of these other guys there. Tyree Stevenson is someone I like a lot. He played in a lot of big spots in Miami and made some plays.
DJ Turner from
out of Michigan, another good player there. So are you focusing? And Ringo out of Georgia.
Yes.
Played in the national championships back-to-back, big-time player. But how do you evaluate a player, and you too, Lincoln, that played on such a dominant team? That's been the knock on Alabama. Everybody's getting double-teamed. Everybody's open on offense with all those receivers, and the running backs are running through these giant holes.
That's a great question, JT. And you have to look at the position. And if you're a corner and you're playing behind, guys who are going to go to the league and guys who are just physically dominant, you don't really get tested. And you really have to do your research on their technique, and because they're never like in conflict because the ball's coming out so fast. So, just particularly down in Alabama, they do such a great job of film prep and film study that they understand exactly what the receivers are doing. So they're sitting on certain plays, and if they are wrong, you know what? The quarterback is sacked. So they never have to go through that mental that mental book of, hey, I got beat the first play. Is he going to try and set me up? And those are the things that make you a really good corner on Sunday, is have to go through that trial by fire. You don't see that at those big organizations.
That's the problem I had with the reach of Damon Arnett. I think
yes.
Backward,
exactly.
He was never tested.
Never.
He came in here, everyone said, well, they never threw to him at Ohio State. Well, that conference runs the ball all the time. They don't have elite quarterbacks normally in there. So he wasn't tested a lot, but everybody thought his talent level and his skill set was going to be at the next level, and he busted out.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And his talent level was there. His skill set was not there, because in order to really hone your skills, you have to go through some fire. You have to be tested, have some adversity that you have to go through. And so then you kind of go to what colleges do you see that develop these cornerbacks who get into the league and they're good? Utah does a great job of defensive backs. They really do.
I covered them. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. They do a great. A while back, Washington did a great job with cornerback. Yeah. You don't want to pick a cornerback coming from USC. I've never seen a USC cornerback outside of Ronnie Lott come to the league and get better. So as an evaluator, you have to go around the country and you have to say to yourself, what coaches do I trust that have developed these guys and then been able to get better on?
When it comes to corner, guys, my theory has always been the scheme has got to be fitting the person, okay? The fact is that we talked about Arnett. Arnett played press in Ohio State. When he got him here, they asked him to play off the ball.
Yeah.
He struggled.
Yeah.
That's not what he is. And so, remind me, the corner we drafted from Clemson that we traded to Arizona.
Trayvon Mullen.
Yeah. Mullen was the same way. Played well against press, could not play off the ball. So when you talk about scheme-wise, just like Bucky alluded to, in Graham's defense, you got to be able to play both. Yeah. There's going to be times he's going to ask you to play, and there's going to be times we're going to ask you to play off, whether it's cover 3, 6 roll, whatever. There are instances that you got to be able to be that versatile. I think that is truly valuable when it comes to assessing some of these corners.
Has to be. Has to be the number one thing, is if their style fits that player that's coming here. And, again, I love Joey Porter, and we talked about it earlier. He is an old-school bump-and-run cornerback. And if that's not something that the Raiders are going to employ and allow him to do, you're right. Got to move on.
I like his moxie.
Oh, me too.
I like him in this building with an attitude, a dad who played at a high level, a guy who's physical, that you can put out there and you can put him anywhere in that secondary, kind of like with Hobbs. You imagine you have Hobbs and him there?
JT, so I'm not going to draft a guy today in the second round and put him behind Hobbs and have him compete with Hobbs. The guy that I'm drafting today, I want to say you are my left or right corner. You're going to have to play off some. You're going to have to play some cover 4. You're going to have to press some. But you know what? When you get here, and if you're a press corner and you're playing against Andy Reid, he's not going to allow you to press his guy. Right. He's going to have his guy off the ball. He's going to have his guy going in motion. So you're going to have to figure out a way to be able to be successful working on your strength, on your
Lincoln
weaknesses.
mentioned Mullen, and we saw what happened with Arnett, and they didn't get Witherspoon and Gonzalez yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just telling you, the hole is there. We go to EA at 38. Let's put up the graphic to see what Eric Allen's going to do. This is the first pick in the second round, EA, and I think I know where you're going.
Corner, right? And so we're talking style, we're talking fit. I love Porter. I think he's, like I said, I think he's an old school type of cornerback. I would love to have him, but if not, you got to get a corner who's going to fit your style.
All right, Lincoln Kennedy is up there on the graphic here. Here is Lincoln Kennedy at number 38 overall. Hey, you've been hitting on this safety for a while.
Brian Branch is one of those uncovered gems that a lot of people have not really noticed or stood out. Now, what I like about him is that at safety out of Alabama, his downside, he's a little bit small. He's only 6 foot, and he's barely 200 pounds, if that. But on the upside, talk about versatility, he's played corner. He's played safety. He does well in space. That versatility, I think, it aids defense, and I think he could be a covered safety in this system here under Graham. So that's why I like it 38.
Yeah, and I'll go with the Miami corner, as I've been saying throughout this, only because I think Porter's going to be gone.
Yeah.
That's it. If my pick was Porter and Ringo out of Georgia, but I think Stevenson out of Miami is a good player that could be there, and he could start. He made a lot of plays in Miami at the U, big-time player.
And he's a good size, 190, 4'4".
Not going to get pushed around fast. And a ball hawk. Came out as a 4-5 star, a big-time player. But, again, the perfect case scenario for me yesterday was to get a corner first and then get a defensive tackle trading back up. They didn't go back into the first round, Lincoln. What clue does that give us here? Because everyone's asking, what's Dave Ziegler going to do? This is his day. Yesterday was one thing. What do you think the clue is early from Dave?
Well, we heard rumors. We heard rumors, JT, that they were trying to get back in the first round, late first round, and they might be one of the teams that are actively talking with Pittsburgh about the possibility of jumping up to 32. So they're trying to be aggressive. But again, you have to think about what commodities do you have that are worth, teams are valuing. And I just don't see a lot of value coming out of those 5th and 6th round picks. You see what I'm saying? It's just I don't see teams, from what we've seen aggressively wise, especially the teams that had a losing record last year, the activity that they had this year in the draft, I don't see a lot of people saying, well, hey, give me that pick because I really value that, or I think I can do something with it.
But those 3s and that 4,
absolutely.
Yes,
those
absolutely.
are valuable.
And
Well,
that's kinda...
if they go quarterback, dinner on me. I mean, dinner at the house. I'm not taking you to a restaurant. I know how you can run up the tab on me. So I'll have it at the house.
Seafood.
We'll have it out at the house there. And we're going to leave you with the shot coming up here momentarily of the War Room. Today's a big day for Dave Ziegler. He's been very generous with his time with us here over the years. And we leave you after these 2 days. Really honored to be here in the building with Lincoln, Eric Allen, Bucky Brooks. We had Vinny Bonsignor, the interviews. Really proud of this broadcast here. Everybody, how about the team behind the scenes?
Yes.
Silver and Black
Phenomenal
Productions.
job.
Do awesome all the time.
They make me look good, so I can't.
They make us all look good. We had a good day. So we'll leave you with this shot of the War Room. If you're seeing it on all of our platforms for our radio audience, thank you so much. Keep it on Raider Nation Radio. Keep it at Raiders.com and all the Raiders social media platforms as they're watching and they're getting ready to pull the trigger here at number 38 and make a big kick or maybe move up or move back. You'll find out here shortly. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening.